The boardroom on the 49th floor of Linford Global was built like a cathedral. Glass walls, a black marble table that stretched like a runway, and a view of New York that made even billionaires feel small. At the head of the table sat Ethan Carrington. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. CEO. Billionaire. The kind of man who signed billion-dollar deals without blinking. He tapped a pen against the final page of the contract. $100 million. A merger that would reshape the energy market. Everyone was watching him. The lawyers, the board members, the silent assistants along the walls. And then, a voice. So soft, so impossible, that for a second, he thought he imagined it. That's the wrong contract. The room froze. Ethan's pen hovered midair. He turned his head, slowly, like a man expecting to see a ghost. There, near the corner by the water station, stood a young black woman in a faded uniform, holding a silver tray. A maid. Her name tag read, Amara. She looked terrified. Her lips trembled. She hadn't meant to speak, but the words were out. Ethan blinked. "What did you say?" Amara's eyes darted to the floor. Her voice shrank. I didn't mean to. That isn't the version you reviewed yesterday. The page order is different. And there's a missing clause about offshore guarantees." The room fell into stunned silence. One of the legal advisors lunged forward, flipping through the document. A moment later, he turned pale. "She's right. This isn't the final draft. It's been swapped." Murmurs broke out across the room. Ethan stood up slowly. His voice was low, measured. "Who brought this in?" Nobody answered. "Get me the original file, now," he ordered. His eyes, however, remained fixed on Amara. Not angry, but curious, calculating. How did she know? She wasn't supposed to speak. She wasn't supposed to see. She was just a maid. But she had just saved him from signing away $100 million. That evening, while the city flickered below and the lawyers scrambled to trace the switch, Ethan stood alone in his office. He stared out at the skyline, then down at the unsigned contract in his hand. Behind his sharp exterior, something shifted. For the first time in years, a face interrupted his thoughts. Not that of a rival, or a model, or a minister. It was hers, Amara Jones, the maid who saw what no one else did.
The next morning, Amara woke up in the tiny apartment she shared with her aunt in Harlem. The cracked ceiling above her bed was familiar, the faded posters of jazz legends peeling from the wall. But the air felt heavier today, like something in the world had tilted just slightly off-center. She didn't plan to speak yesterday. God knows she'd trained herself not to. In places like Linford Global, the help were supposed to be invisible. Clean. Serve. Disappear. And yet, she had spoken. As she buttoned up her uniform, gray, stiff, slightly too large, Amara whispered a curse under her breath. What the hell did I do? At Linford HQ, Ethan Carrington had already reviewed the building's full security logs. He didn't speak a word as footage showed Amara entering the boardroom with coffee, lingering a second too long by the stack of contracts, and then returning to the corner. His assistant Olivia stood beside him, visibly nervous. She's been employed through an outsourced cleaning company for almost 7 months. No complaints, no infractions. Lives uptown with a relative, nothing suspicious. Ethan tapped his jaw with a Mont Blanc pen. She's not just a maid. Olivia hesitated. "Excuse me?" She noticed something 10 corporate lawyers missed. Something even I missed. He leaned back in his chair. That's either genius or extremely dangerous. Meanwhile, Amara had been reassigned. Instead of cleaning the 49th floor, she was given a smaller hallway on the 30th, less visible, less important. It was a quiet form of punishment. Or protection? She wasn't sure. By noon, she was already drenched in sweat. She scrubbed stainless steel with practiced rhythm, avoiding eye contact with executives who passed by without seeing her. Until one voice stopped her. "Ms. Jones?" Her spine went rigid. That voice didn't belong here. She turned slowly. There he was, Ethan Carrington, in a navy suit tailored so perfectly it looked grown from his skin. "I'd like a word." She froze, her eyes scanned for cameras. I'm not supposed to talk to staff at your level, sir." He gave the faintest smirk. "Don't worry. I overrule myself." They spoke in an empty conference room. Amara refused to sit. Ethan didn't insist. "I owe you something. You saved this company from disaster." She folded her arms. It wasn't intentional. "Still, you saw something. You spoke. That takes nerve." Amara shrugged. "No one was supposed to hear me." He leaned in slightly. "Tell me something. How did you know the clause was missing?" Silence. Then, "I studied behavioral economics at Howard University. Full scholarship. Graduated top 3%. Then life happened." She met his eyes directly. "And now I mop floors for a living." For once, Ethan Carrington didn't have a ready reply. Amara turned to leave, but paused at the door. "You don't have to worry. I'm not going to sell your secret or ask for a reward. People like me don't get those." Then she disappeared, as quickly and quietly as she had arrived. But Ethan stood still, haunted not by her words, but what they revealed. There was a brilliant mind hiding beneath a uniform, and it just saw through him.
2 days passed. Amora expected to be fired. No one called, no one texted. Her pay came through like nothing happened. She kept her head down, working quietly on the 30th floor, occasionally catching distant glimpses of men in suits whispering behind glass walls. But no Ethan. Until a manila envelope showed up in her locker. No name, no return address, just a card. "A mind like yours doesn't belong in the shadows. E.C." Inside, a folder filled with photocopied contracts, some real, some forged, and a note. "Spot the inconsistencies. Deadline tomorrow." She almost laughed. What kind of billionaire plays games with a maid? But late that night, on her aunt's kitchen table beneath a flickering bulb, Amara picked up a red pen and began. She didn't sleep. The next morning, Amara dropped the folder off in the mail chute labeled Internal Legal. No note, no signature. Then she returned to scrubbing a fingerprint-covered elevator mirror. By noon, the intercom buzzed. "Amora Jones, report to office 4901. That was Ethan Carrington's office. Every inch of the room looked like a museum exhibit. Black glass, white orchids, silence thick enough to swallow sound. Ethan stood with his back to her, facing the city. "You found all 13 errors, even the fake watermark. Impressive." She stayed silent. "You didn't just catch them. You explained why each inconsistency would have failed under audit. That's legal consultant level work." Amora crossed her arms. "What do you want from me?" Ethan smiled. Not kindly, but like a man with a loaded gun and a new chess piece. "I want to offer you a position." She blinked. "As what? Your cleaning lady with a clipboard?" "No, as someone who listens, watches, thinks. I want you in rooms no one expects you to understand, quietly, discreetly, paid accordingly." Her pulse quickened. She hated how tempting it sounded. She hated that he knew it would tempt her. "And when I'm done being useful?" she asked. Ethan's smile faded. "Then we'll renegotiate." Amora stared at him for a long moment. "Why me?" she asked. He answered without hesitation. "Because you're invisible, and that makes you dangerous." That night, Amora stood at her bathroom mirror watching her reflection. A week ago, she was invisible. Now, a billionaire wanted to turn her into a weapon. She wasn't sure if it was a rescue or a trap. But something in her, the part that once dreamed in lecture halls, whispered, "Play the game." Amara's new badge didn't say maid anymore. It didn't say anything, just a silver chip, unmarked, except for a code etched on the back, L49OBS. Observation. The next morning, she was instructed to dress in plain black slacks and a white blouse, the uniform of every intern and invisible assistant in Linford Global, blending in, watching, forgettable. Ethan didn't even greet her when she stepped onto the 49th floor. Instead, his assistant Olivia handed her a small black folder. Inside, a name, a schedule, and a warning. Subject, Victor Leong. Position, Head of Strategic Partnerships. Status, under internal review, confidential. Objective, discreetly observe. Report any suspicious activity or deviations from protocol. No contact, no confrontation. Victor Leong, the man who'd practically pushed the wrong contract into Ethan's hand last week. For the next 3 days, Amara shadowed. She watched Victor take his coffee black and too quickly. He rarely smiled, but he charmed investors like a magician. His words were polished, his actions rehearsed, but behind his eyes, something felt off. On day 4, she noticed the first crack. Victor met with a man in a dark suit, not company staff, in the building's basement parking level. They exchanged nothing but a glance and a slim envelope. She wrote it down. On day 6, he rerouted a file through his personal email server. She caught it only because the copy machine jammed, and she fixed it before IT arrived. She wrote that one down too. By day 7, she had 2 pages of observations. No hard evidence, just shadows, patterns. But shadows mattered. She submitted the report late Friday evening. Monday morning, Victor Leong was gone. No explanation, no goodbye. His nameplate vanished from the office door as if he never existed. Amara didn't ask questions. But Ethan summoned her anyway. This time, his office felt colder, less like a museum, more like a lair. "You did well," he said simply. "Victor was preparing to sell sensitive partner data offshore. Your report forced us to act." Amara sat, her back straight. "What happened to him?" Ethan looked amused. "Let's just say he no longer works in mergers." A long silence followed. "You're good at this," he said finally. "Too good to stay in the dark." He slid a leather-bound folder toward her. "Next target." Amara didn't open it. Instead, she asked, "Why not just hire professionals, PIs, lawyers, people trained to do this?" Ethan's voice dropped. "Because they talk. You don't." Later that night, Amara stood at the subway platform, folder clutched in her coat. The city thundered past her, cold, unforgiving, alive. She wasn't just cleaning up messes now. She was inside the machine. And the deeper she went, the more she wondered, who's really watching who? The name in the new folder made Amara pause. Rebecca Dane, Chief Legal Officer, Ethan's longtime advisor. That alone made the assignment feel different. This wasn't just another executive. This was one of his people, sharp, loyal, and ruthlessly efficient. If something was wrong with Rebecca Dane, it meant the rot ran deeper than expected. But Amara didn't hesitate. She knew how to observe now, where to stand, how to blend in, what to listen for without being noticed. Rebecca arrived at the office every morning at 6:43 a.m. sharp. No coffee, no greetings, just 3 typed pages of legal review notes left on Ethan's desk before he stepped in at 7. But on Thursday, she was late. By 2 hours. When she finally arrived, her blazer was wrinkled and there was a cut on her palm. She didn't speak to anyone. She locked her door. That evening, Amara waited until most of the floor had cleared out. Then she made her move. With silent steps, she entered Rebecca's office, claiming she was there to collect recycling. Her eyes scanned quickly. Legal pads, coded memos, a framed photo turned upside down. But it was the trash bin that gave her pause. Shredded pages, not unusual, except for one half-burned corner tucked at the bottom. She reached in and carefully unfolded the edge. A signature. Not Rebecca's, not Ethan's. A third party, Louis Tern. A name Amara had seen only once before, weeks ago, on the original incorrect contract. She pocketed the scrap and left the room without a sound. Ethan was waiting in his office when she returned. "I'm going to regret giving you access to my inner circle, aren't I?" he said, watching her walk in. Amara laid the paper scrap on his desk. "Who is Louis Tern?" Ethan's expression shifted, not surprised, but tight. "Someone I paid to disappear years ago." Amara folded her arms. "He didn't, and Rebecca has been in contact." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Leave it with me." She didn't move. "You're going to shut me out now?" Ethan leaned forward. "You're a cleaner, Amara. Don't forget that." Her eyes narrowed. "No," she said softly. "Not anymore." That night, she received no new folder, no message, no update. She had crossed an invisible line. But Amara had seen enough in her short life to know what came next. Loyalty has a price, and so does the truth. She just hadn't decided yet which one she was willing to pay.
The silence from Ethan lasted 3 days. No texts, no new assignments, not even a glance when they passed in the hall. But Amara wasn't waiting for permission. She'd spent the last year invisible. Now she had access to elevators most staff didn't. She knew which floors had cameras, and more importantly, which ones didn't. On the 3rd night, she took the risk. Using a cloned keycard she'd quietly copied weeks ago, she slipped into legal archives, a secure level beneath the building, guarded by biometric locks and 2 cameras Ethan probably assumed were enough to keep people like her out. But he didn't know she'd made friends with the overnight security guard. A lonely man named Richie, who loved jazz and owed her a favor after she fixed his broken thermos. The cameras blinked off for exactly 90 seconds. It was enough. She found it in box 34B, a sealed folder labeled Turna, Private, Dismissed. Not shredded, not erased, just forgotten, or so they thought. She flipped through the pages quickly. 5 years ago, Ethan Carrington signed a licensing contract with a Swiss biotech firm, supposedly to fund sustainable research. The real purpose: a shell scheme funneled $12 million through a dummy account tied to Louis Tern, a financial fixer known for laundering money through green startups. Rebecca Dane had signed off on it, and 1 year later, she filed an internal report warning Ethan the scheme was too risky. He never responded, but he kept her close, not because he trusted her, but because she knew too much. When Amara left the archived room, her heart pounded louder than her footsteps. She didn't take the whole file, just one scan, sent to a dead Dropbox she'd created under a false name months ago. Insurance. The next morning, Ethan called her in. He didn't offer her coffee. He didn't smile. "You broke protocol," he said simply. She met his gaze. "So did you." He leaned back slowly. "You think you're holding something over me." "No," she said. "I'm holding a mirror." A long silence passed. Then Ethan reached into his drawer and slid a different folder across the desk. No label. Just one word, handwritten on the front. Amara. She opened it. Inside were photos of her. Taking the document from the archive, talking to Richie, copying the keycard. "Consider this your only warning," Ethan said coldly. "You're useful, but you're not untouchable." Amara stood slowly, a folder still in hand. "Neither are you," she replied. That night, she opened the Dropbox. The file was still there, but someone else had downloaded it. Someone anonymous. Someone watching. When suddenly, Amara realized she wasn't just part of Ethan's game anymore. She was in someone else's.
The download was time-stamped 2:13 a.m. No IP, no metadata, just a digital ghost. Amara stared at the empty screen long after the file had vanished. Someone had beaten her to her own backup, and that meant someone was watching both her and Ethan. Not out of curiosity, but strategy. She didn't go to work the next day. Instead, she visited a hacker she'd helped once, a teenager named Sloan who lived above a mechanic's shop in the Bronx. Sloan owed her 2 favors, one for helping him get out of a stolen phone charge, and one for never asking why his tools looked like FBI equipment. He greeted her wearing socks with flamingos on them and a sarcastic smile. "You look like you pissed off a billionaire," he said. "I did. And now someone's watching me." "Yeah," Sloan said, spinning to his monitors. "That tends to happen when billionaires are involved." 30 minutes later, Sloan whistled low. "This isn't random. Whoever pulled that file from your dead drop did it from inside a secure network, government-level masking. But get this." He tapped the screen. The access point was from inside Linford Global, not outside, not a whistleblower, not a competitor. Someone inside the company had eyes on her, and they wanted her to know it. Back at her apartment, Amara checked every light switch, every vent. She'd never been paranoid before, but this felt different. She was no longer just tracking corruption. She was a liability. She tried calling Ethan. No answer. She tried Olivia. No answer. That evening, she received a package. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed in bold, center-aligned, "We see what you see. Stay out of Contract 7B. There was no signature, but the meaning was clear. Amara searched Linford Global's public database. No listing for Contract 7B. Nothing in the legal filings. Nothing in project management. It didn't exist, at least not officially, which meant it was exactly where she needed to go. She returned to work the next day wearing the maid uniform. No badge, no suspicion. By 11 a.m., she'd snuck into the records vault again, this time using the staff elevator meant for supply carts. She searched box after box, nothing labeled 7B. But then, in a file marked Obsolete Vendor Agreements, she found a subfolder taped shut and hand-labeled in red ink, 7B, Do Not Migrate. Inside, a single-page contract, signed 3 weeks ago. Ethan Carrington and Louis Tern. The signature wasn't forged. It wasn't coerced. Ethan had rehired the man who tried to scam the company for $100 million. And the kicker? The new deal was for consultation on offshore investment strategies. It wasn't just fraud, it was planned. Ethan was working with the man she thought he feared most. As Amara held the page, her blood turned cold. The man she was protecting wasn't cleaning up corporate corruption. He was the architect of it. And now she had proof. But what she didn't have was time.
Amara didn't go back to her floor. She didn't go to Ethan's office, or to HR, or even to the security desk. She walked out of the building. With the 7B contract hidden in a delivery sleeve, past cameras, past guards, past suspicion. By the time she reached her apartment, her hands were still trembling. Ethan was working with Louis Turn. Not in the past, not in the shadows. Now, openly, secretly. And someone inside Linford Global was helping him cover it up, maybe multiple people. She scanned the contract, uploaded it to a private drive, printed a copy. Then she did something she hadn't done since her mother's funeral. She prayed. Not for forgiveness, but for clarity. Because the next step would define everything, not just who she was, but who she'd become. At 3:06 a.m., her doorbell rang. She didn't answer. At 3:09, her phone lit up. Unknown number. "You should open the door. It's not what you think." She did. It wasn't Ethan. It was Rebecca Dane, the woman Amara had been following, investigating. She didn't look like a power lawyer anymore. No heels, no bag, just dark jeans and a sweatshirt. And eyes that had seen too much. "May I come in?" Rebecca asked. Amara stepped aside. They sat across from each other in silence. Rebecca finally spoke. "You found 7B. "Yes. "And now you think you know everything?" "I know enough." Rebecca leaned forward. "Then let me tell you the rest, before you decide what to do." Over the next 20 minutes, Rebecca unraveled the real story. Louis Turn had never truly left the company. He'd gone underground, by design. Ethan didn't just tolerate it, he engineered it. Contract 7B is the tip. Ethan has been laundering money through shell nonprofits for 5 years. Climate initiatives, tech incubators, all fake, all filtered. Why stay? Why protect him? Rebecca smiled bitterly. "I wasn't protecting him. I was gathering enough to bring him down. But I couldn't do it alone." She slid a USB across the table. "This is everything here. Files, records, conversations. I was waiting for the right person to help me expose him. Then you showed up, cleaning floors, listening when you thought no one noticed." "And now?" Amara asked. "Now you have a choice." Rebecca stood. "You can walk away. I'll disappear, you'll go back to whatever life you had before, or," she looked Amara straight in the eye, "or you help me burn Ethan Carrington to the ground." When the door closed behind her, Amara stared at the USB drive on the table. It glinted under the kitchen light like a loaded gun. And in that moment, she understood. The real power in the world doesn't lie in contracts, it lies in who dares to break them. She didn't sleep. The USB sat on her desk like a silent dare. At dawn, Amara finally moved. She packed a bag, not with clothes, but tools, burners, notes, disposable drives, things she never thought she'd need unless she ran. But she wasn't running. She was going to war. At 9 a.m., she walked into Linford Global, like nothing had changed. The cleaning cart helped. So did the uniform. It gave her access. Access was power. Her first stop was the executive IT office. She knew the rotation schedule. A young tech named Jordan would be out at coffee until at least 9:20. That gave her 12 minutes. She wasn't there to steal data. She was there to plant a worm, courtesy of Sloan, a silent program that would duplicate all future communications from Ethan Carrington's account and forward them to a black site inbox hosted on a server in the Cayman Islands. By the time Jordan returned, whistling and balancing 2 lattes, Amara was already gone.
By noon, the worm was working. She watched the emails come in from a private device hidden in a vent on the 18th floor near the finance department, where nobody ever looked twice at ventilation staff. Most of it was routine, until 12:43 p.m. Subject: Final Transfer Project Blue Harbor. From Ethan at linfordglobal.com to lturn@proximacapital.net. Initiating final stage, $38 million to be moved by Friday, assets cleared, discretion critical. Record contract codename 7B, delete after read. Blue Harbor. She didn't know the name, but she knew what it meant. This wasn't just about consulting, or side deals, or skimming millions. This was a full-scale offshore transfer, one step away from financial exodus. Ethan was getting ready to vanish. That evening, Rebecca called. "Who's pulling the plug?" Amara said. "I know. I've seen it before. What do we do?" Rebecca didn't hesitate. "We leak the documents. We hit the board, the press, simultaneously." "Won't they bury it?" "Not this time. Not with what's on that drive." But Rebecca had one more warning. "You need to be ready for what comes after. You're not just exposing a man. You're exposing a system, and it'll protect itself." Amara nodded. "I'm ready." "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm going anyway." At 2 a.m., Amara sent the first encrypted bundle to a journalist named Mia Vasquez, a relentless investigative reporter with a grudge against corporate corruption. At 2:07 a.m., she sent a second copy to the Linford Board of Directors, and at 2:10 a.m., she texted Ethan. "It's the wrong contract, Ethan. I thought you should know, before the world does." Then she waited. Not for praise, not for thanks, but for impact. Because bombs don't go off when you light them. They go off after.
It started with a headline. Billionaire CEO linked to $100 million fraud scheme, internal leak reveals. By 7:13 a.m., it had gone global. By 8 a.m., Linford Global's stock dropped 14%. By 9:45 a.m., Ethan Carrington's face was on every news outlet from New York to Singapore. And by noon, he knew exactly who to blame. Amara didn't go into work. She stayed in a borrowed apartment above a flower shop in Queens, one of Rebecca's safe houses. The air smelled like lavender and rotting stems. Her phone was turned off, her laptop stripped and clean. Rebecca arrived carrying 2 coffees and a quiet look of tension. "It's working," she said. "But Ethan's countering." Across the city, Ethan Carrington called a closed-door emergency board meeting. He claimed the documents were forgeries. He called the leak a hostile foreign cyber attack. He fired 3 executives, scapegoats, and then he made the boldest move of all. He painted himself as the victim, publicly, gracefully, strategically. He gave an exclusive interview by 4 p.m., sitting beneath a portrait of his late father, claiming loyalty, patriotism, and betrayal. "We were misled by outside consultants. I've launched an internal investigation and offered full cooperation to authorities." It was almost perfect. Almost. But Ethan had underestimated something. Not Amara, not Rebecca. The press. Journalist Mia Vasquez didn't stop at the documents. She dug deeper, tracked shell corporations, false charities, fake addresses, and she discovered a trail that led to Cayman Holdings, a front Ethan had used to funnel the last of the money through a biotech firm. She aired the evidence live at 6 p.m. This time, there was video, signatures, timestamps. Ethan couldn't deny it anymore. By 7:30 p.m., the FBI issued a formal request for inquiry. By 9 o'clock, the Linford board suspended Ethan as CEO. At 9:12, Amara received a text from an unknown number. "You really think this ends with him losing a job?" The message was followed by a picture, her apartment from across the street. Rebecca swept the apartment for trackers, found none, but that didn't matter anymore.
Ethan wasn't trying to find her. He was trying to remind her he still had reach. They moved again that night. New location, burner phones only. But Amara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment she'd started this, the cleaning shift, the flash drive, the contracts. She'd exposed a king, but kings fall slowly, and they don't fall alone. The next morning, she received a call from the one person she didn't expect, Louis Turn.
The voice was calm, too calm. "Miss James, I believe it's time we talked." Amara didn't respond at first, just stared at the burner phone in her hand like it might catch fire. "Don't hang up," Louis Turn said. "You've made your move, now hear mine." Rebecca wanted to trace the call. Amara said no. "If he's reaching out now, it's not to threaten, it's to negotiate, or to bait you," Rebecca replied. Amara's eyes narrowed. "Either way, I need to know what he wants." The meeting was arranged in an art gallery in Soho, public enough to be safe, obscure enough to be quiet. Rebecca waited outside, armed and wired. At precisely 11 a.m., Louis Turn appeared. He wasn't what Amara expected. No tuxedo, no villain's grin, just a man in a navy wool coat and suede gloves, carrying a cane he didn't seem to need. "Miss James, I believe it's time we talked." Amara didn't respond at first, just stared at the burner phone in her hand like it might catch fire. "Don't hang up," Louis Turn said. "You've made your move, now hear mine." Rebecca wanted to trace the call. Amara said no. "If he's reaching out now, it's not to threaten, it's to negotiate, or to bait you," Rebecca replied. Amara's eyes narrowed. "Either way, I need to know what he wants." The meeting was arranged in an art gallery in Soho, public enough to be safe, obscure enough to be quiet. Rebecca waited outside, armed and wired. At precisely 11 a.m., Louis Turn appeared. He wasn't what Amara expected. No tuxedo, no villain's grin, just a man in a navy wool coat and suede gloves, carrying a cane he didn't seem to need. "Miss James, or should I say, Miss Catalyst." She didn't take it. "Say what you came to say." Louis didn't flinch. He led her through a corridor of minimalist sculptures. Everything was gray, cold, and unnervingly silent, like they were walking through someone else's memory. "Do you know why Ethan lost?" he asked suddenly. "Because he's greedy, arrogant, criminal." He smiled. "That's why he tried, not why he failed." He turned to face her fully. "You exposed him, and now you think the system is broken. It isn't. It's correcting." Amara folded her arms. "And what role do you think you play in that correction?" Louis looked amused. "The same I always play. I build structures. I hide things in plain sight. I leave the doors open and watch who dares to enter." Amara's throat tightened. "You let me find 7B. Louis nodded. "I needed Ethan out. He was sloppy, no vision. But you've shown initiative, courage, intelligence. I'm here to offer you a seat." Silence. It took Amara a full 5 seconds to realize what he meant. "You want to hire me." "Not hire, partner. You've proven you understand leverage. The question is whether you know how to use it for more than revenge." Amara stared at him, speechless. "Then, you set up Ethan. You used me. I gave you a mirror. You broke it. That power is yours now." He pulled something from his coat. A folder. Slim, cream-colored. Inside is your new identity. Offshore accounts, access, tools. For what? For anything you want next. He placed it on the pedestal between them. "I'll give you 1 day. If you walk away, nothing changes. If you say yes, you'll never be powerless again." She didn't take the folder. Not yet. She just watched him leave, cane tapping like a countdown behind him. Outside, Rebecca was waiting. "You good?" she asked. "No, but I think I just got invited to replace the devil we exposed."
The folder sat on the hotel room table like a sleeping animal. She hadn't opened it. Not yet. But it called to her. Everything she'd fought for, proof, justice, exposure, had brought her here. And now the final reward wasn't freedom. It was inclusion. Rebecca paced behind her, silent. Finally, she asked the question that had hung in the air since Amara left the gallery. "Are you really thinking about it?" Amara didn't answer directly. She touched the edge of the folder, ran her fingers over the embossed crest on the front, Turn Holdings. She was thinking about it. Not out of greed, not out of fear, but because she'd learned something dangerous. The system doesn't collapse. It adapts, and it absorbs its enemies. By noon, the media had shifted. The board at Linford Global released a statement praising swift self-correction. Investors were stabilizing. The scandal was already being repackaged into a story of resilience. Ethan was gone, but the machine was alive and well, and Lewis Turn was greasing its gears again. Amara looked at the folder one last time. Then she opened it. Inside was a flash drive, a key card, and a 2-word note: "No heroes." There was also a contract, not unlike the one she'd stopped Ethan from signing, but this one was clean, elegant, deadly. It granted her control over a new division at Turn Holdings, fully funded, globally backed, with a vague mission: ethical acquisitions and influence management. A sandbox for the morally flexible. That night, Rebecca spoke again. "You can't play their game, Amara." "I know. So what now?" Amara smiled, not with joy, but with understanding. "Now I write the rules." She scanned the contract, saved a copy, and then she did something Lewis Turn didn't expect. She leaked it. At 3:42 a.m., a new story broke. Exclusive: Shadow CEO offers silencing contract to whistleblower Maid. Mia Vasquez's article was surgical, cold, unforgiving. It exposed everything: the offer, the money, the hypocrisy. By morning, Turn Holdings was trending, for all the wrong reasons. Lewis didn't call. He didn't threaten. He didn't need to. Because Amara knew. He hadn't lost. He had simply miscalculated the one thing he couldn't control: a woman with nothing to lose and no price to buy her. Epilogue, 1 year later. Amara runs a small foundation now, anonymous, funded by a settlement from the Linford board. She trains whistleblowers, buys burner phones in bulk, wears gloves when she walks into a building. She's not a hero, but she's something rarer, unpurchasable. And every so often, she still sees Lewis's name in the news. Always clean, always curated, but every time she reads it, she whispers the words that started it all. "That's the wrong contract."